From the day that these murders occurred and throughout the long investigation, I always believed that we would find the truth. And I always believed that there would be justice for these victims. Today brings us one step closer to achieving this justice. The verdict that the jury in Pike County handed down just an hour ago does not bring the 8 victims back. And I really don't believe in a tragedy such as this there's anything such as closure. But today the Roden and the Gilley families can take some comfort in knowing that George Wagner has been convicted and that he will be punished, as will his brother Jake and his mother Angela. I want to thank the jury. It made a great sacrifice. This has certainly been one of the longest, if not the longest, trials in Ohio history. They hung in there, they did their job, they did their civic duty, and we're grateful for their work. I also want to thank Special Prosecutors Angie Canepa and Andy Wilson and Pike County Prosecutor Rob Junk. They sacrificed a great deal, time from their families, time from their regular work to get the job done. They are highly talented trial lawyers, highly talented trial prosecutors, and the quality of their work has been exceptional. We are grateful for the thousands of hours that they have poured into this case to see that there would, in fact, be justice. And on a personal note, we will be happy to welcome Andy Wilson back to the governor's office. I also want to thank all law enforcement that was involved in this very difficult and complicated case. I want to thank the BCI agents, the investigators, the analysts, forensic scientists, and crime victim advocates. They solved these crimes. They assisted the family. They helped uncover nearly 5,000 pieces of evidence. They put this case together. They figured out what at times seemed like such an implausible motive, the custody of a child for the murder of 8 innocent people. But they did it. They did it. They are true professionals. They really combined old-fashioned police work with modern technology, again, to solve a very difficult case. To the Roden and Gilley families, I just want to say that you have always remained in my thoughts. You have remained in my thoughts, as have your loved ones who were murdered. I know that many of you spent days in the courtroom, day after day, watching the trial and waiting for this moment. You never gave up, you never lost faith, and today you're one step closer to having final justice. In the days ahead, George Wagner will get sentenced, and Billy Wagner's fate will also be determined. And I will remain steadfast in my belief that everyone who is involved in these murders will get what they deserve. Happy to take questions.
So were you surprised that it took as long as it did to investigate this case over 6 years?
No. The question is, was I surprised that it took so long to investigate the case? If you'll recall, the question I usually got from the media when I was the Attorney General was whether or not we would ever solve the case. From the day of the murder to the day we announced the indictments, I remained convinced that we would solve this case, these cases. It took a while, but I was confident that justice would be served, we would be able to solve the case. Again, it's a tribute to the law enforcement people who were involved in this investigation. There's never been, to my knowledge, a more complicated or lengthy investigation by BCI, ever. And they hung in there. They did not give up. They stayed with it, and they got the job done. So no, I was always convinced that we were going to be able to do that. You know, I think, speaking of time, this jury was only out, what, 7 or 8 hours in a very long trial. And I think that says something. I can't speak for the jury. They can speak for themselves, but I think it says something to the overwhelming evidence that was presented by the prosecutors.
Wagner, how satisfying is it for you and your team to see this all the way through from when you were Attorney General till now?
Yeah, well, it's very, the question is, how satisfying is it to see this day? Look, it's very satisfying. We're not done yet. There's one more trial, obviously. But yes, this is something that, you know, for a number of years as the Attorney General of this state, I lived with this case. And we spent a lot of time analyzing it. And when we started, you know, as I described it at the time, when my experiences, going back to my days as a prosecutor, is when, you know, you have bodies that are found and nothing else. Those are just always difficult cases. And again, my hat goes off to the BCI, the other investigators, everyone involved in this case, because they never gave up. They stayed with it, and they really combined just old-fashioned hard work, gut-wrenching police work with some modern technology, and those things coming together really made the difference, and that's why we're here today. And I would say something else, that, you know, in regard to the 3 prosecutors that I mentioned, all 3 of them, you know, were directly involved in the investigation itself. You know, they were there all the way through, and that's why, you know, we felt it was so important that they try the case. You know, Andy Wilson still works for the governor, but, you know, it was important for he go off and try this case. Rob Junk is the prosecutor who's been with this case all the way through. Angie Canepa, there's no finer trial lawyer, no finer prosecutor than Angie Canepa. And she lived with this case, as did the other 2, all the way through. And that's why it was so very important that they be the ones that actually try the case. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you all very much.